Flosstube. I'm Michelle from Michelle's Romantic Tangle, and it is, I don't know what it is. It's like Thursday, April 23rd. I looked at the calendar before I sat down to record this, but time has got really weird lately. I am still commuting to the job that isn't mine, driving my son to work and picking him up, and I cannot manage to keep in my head whether he's at home or at work, even though I know he didn't ride back in the car with me. I'm discombobulated. I have only worked on one cross stitch project since the last time I saw you. This is Furry Friends, and I pulled it out of the Q snap so I can show you how huge this thing is. It's 15 3/4 by 11 3/4. What is that? That's the design size. That blob of brown that I told you last time was a cat suddenly has a face. I got to last night to where I could see the eyes, and that was just a life-changing moment as far as my cross-stitching goes. I don't know if that's silly, but I'm loving this. It is seriously all the brown. There's nothing on this project at this point that would not be considered a brown of some variety. And there are very few colors in the entire project that aren't brown. I learned my lesson with the hedgehogs, and I am stitching everything as I go. I am not leaving any random little bits of unstitched stuff to figure out later what the color is going to be. There's one here and one over there, and I know what color both of those are, and as soon as I work with those colors again, I will fill them in. When I was working on the hedgehogs, remember me saying that the hedgehogs had lots and lots of brown? I didn't know what I was talking about. This is lots and lots of brown. This is like not. I love it. Like I said, I go days without stitching, and then yesterday I think I did 4 hours on this or something crazy like that. And if that keeps me happy, then that is what I'm going to do. And only other thing I've really worked on creative-wise is the shawl. I thought I had figured out how to hold this so that you could see the whole thing, or sort of the whole thing. That's close. I had such concerns about this shawl. I am on the home stretch. The row, it's backwards. The rows are getting shorter, and I'm just doing decreases until I get down to the point. And it's soothing, it's repetitive, it's to a point where I don't have to look at the pattern anymore. And really, this thing, I was going to look and see how many yards of yarn is in this. It's a crazy lot, and it's taking forever, but it's accomplishing its purpose, because the previous times that I have been stuck and waiting for things to happen, I have knit socks. I can't remember how many pairs of socks I knit while my husband was laid up after his accident. It was ridiculous. I was finishing a pair of socks every 6 or 7 days. I don't need that many socks. I love knitting socks, but so having this where it is one thing to work on and I don't have to keep constantly starting something else, I like it. I'm going to have to start thinking about what I'm going to do when it's done, because it may be done by the next video or not. I finally sort of almost saw my parents for the first time since February 4th. Birthdays have come and gone, and I had something to drop off at her house, and I had loaned her a whole big stack of books back in February. Quilting stuff that I hadn't even looked at yet, so drove up to her house, sat at the end of her driveway, and dropped stuff on the porch and rang the doorbell and did a swap without coming into contact with each other. It was ridiculous, but I got my birthday presents. It's my new t-shirt. I may look calm, but in my head I've pecked you 3 times. She had showed me this back, I think, in January, because she thought it was cute, but she didn't know if I'd actually wear it. I will totally wear this t-shirt everywhere because it fits my current thought process just beyond perfectly, and there are so many days I feel like this. So I love my chicken. We also have a chicken who frequently has this bewildered look on her face. I believe her name is Schmitty Worthyman Jensen or something like that. I'm not in charge of chicken names. She's perpetually bewildered. I also got for my birthday a new Riolis kit that I've absolutely been coveting. This one is called Stitching Lessons. And I had looked at the pictures online over and over and over and couldn't tell for sure this is full coverage. It is just as big as Furry Friends and it is full coverage and I love it. I didn't read the product description closely enough to realize that it is 6-stranded cotton floss and not the wool acrylic blend, but that's okay because my gosh, guys, look at how gorgeous this is. I want to start this very soon. Maybe not today. And I also got this one. It's Riolis Still Life with Orange, which I'm probably not going to actually start until after I finish the one with the Wheel of Cheese because I don't need 2 still lifes with lots of fruits and grapes going at the same time. But I love it and I'm glad I have it in my stash. I find something very comforting in the I could stitch it if I wanted to. And then these are quilt patterns. They are by, what is her name? Okay, Laura Heine. I should have looked before I started talking about them. These are applique with little teeny tiny scraps. And when we were at the coast back in November at the quilt shop in Newport, which I should be able to remember the name of, but I can't, they had, I don't know how many of her quilts on the wall. They were amazing and they were gorgeous. And this other lady shopping at the same time saw us drooling over them and gave us like a little mini lecture about how to do it and how easy they were and how fun they were. And now I can do them. Probably not soon because these look, I guess the technique is hard, digging through my thrifted fabric scraps to find the right fabrics for these. That'll be hard. I have been binging horror on my Kindle Unlimited subscription like you would not believe. Midwives by Douglas Ralston, I think is the author's name, is the freakiest thing I have read in a long time. I don't knit with metal knitting needles because I cannot stand the sound they make. It makes me shudder. After reading that book, I could be terrified of metal knitting needles. Really creepy folk horror on an island. Don't read it if you're pregnant. Don't read it if you're sensitive to pregnancy loss, although I don't know who isn't sensitive to pregnancy loss, but if I had read it at the wrong time, it wouldn't have been good. Last week, it was a fabulous book. I went through, pulled together all of our library books. Somehow we only have 38 of them, which is like an all-time low for us because before they closed the library and started the lockdown, I was good and went through the house and returned all the books I knew I wouldn't have time to read. Bad idea. I've got a handful, and I mean I've got lots and lots of books in my house, so I will not be without things to read, but dang, I wish I hadn't returned some of those because I could read them now. Mona Cunningham left a comment that she's making a Regency style dress out of sheets, and that reminded me, back when I did the Does This Have to Be Expensive video, I meant to put in pictures of the dress my daughter had made herself. Apparently what you can do with 3 solid flat sheets from Walmart, a zipper, and a handful of buttons if you're really motivated. She had found a dress online that she desperately wanted but couldn't afford, and she drafted herself a pattern and taught herself to sew clothing with YouTube videos. I can sew clothes, but nothing anywhere like that. Where there is a will, there's a way, and I wish I would have remembered to put this in that video because it is the perfect illustration of how things don't have to be terribly expensive if you're working on a budget. I'll put a link to her blog posts in the description below so you can see all the other pictures of it. I really want to see Mona's dress. I am trying to picture a Regency dress out of sheets, and loving the idea. I'm thinking about mania, and the more I think about mania, the more worried I almost get about mania. I loved it last year. I gave myself permission to start absolutely anything I wanted to start. Didn't go into it at all organized. I just each day grabbed what was closest to the things I wanted to stitch and didn't worry about it much. I started 21 projects, and I didn't look before I started this video to see how many of them I actually finished. It was a lot. At least a third, if not closer to half. So it was really productive and fun because it let me start a bunch of new things without agonizing over, if I start this, am I going to stitch on it for weeks or months or until it is done? I could start it, work on it for a day, and then move to the next thing, and then the whole rest of the year I had this great selection of things to start, pick up, and work on. And I have been counting down like since June to this year's mania. Now I'm thinking about it, and I've got some stuff that I'm really emotionally invested in, and I'm almost afraid that if I start it now with everything that's going on, I might get some bad emotions tied in with those projects. So we got another week till May. I can think about it. My bigger, more realistic fear is, what if I don't have enough Aida? I suspect that if I go through my sewing room and really dig, that I have more Aida than I think I have. I know I have a lot more linen than I have Aida, because back in my first round of cross stitching, I had started to be pressured into the idea that stitching with Aida was better, or more grown up, or the right way to do it, or I don't know what. But I let myself get convinced that for projects that weren't full coverage, maybe linen was the better option, and I collected a decent amount of it, so I could stitch on linen, maybe. I'm gonna have to look and see what I've got and think about what I might or might not want to do. Right now, I am not planning beyond the next time I have to cook a meal or take my kid to work or pick my kid up to work, because if I look long term or until tomorrow, it gets really overwhelming really fast. So I'm not doing that. And I guess that brings me to the last thing I was going to maybe mention in this video. And why is my landline ringing? Nobody calls me on the landline. But I suppose I should see who that is. Hang on. They hung up on me. Nobody ever calls on that line except for telemarketers and robocalls, and I could have totally ignored it, except none of us want to hear the stupid thing ring while I'm finishing my video. Thank you for watching. I am Michelle with Michelle's Romantic Tangle, and I'm going to go do some more gridding so that I can stretch further on Furry Friends and maybe actually look to see how much fabric I have and what I want to pull out. I could totally find 31 kits to start for Mania if I wanted to. I'll let you know what I decide on. Thanks for watching.